Justice for Dr. Antoinette Bonnie Candia-Bailey. We're going to be talking about the life of Dr. Candia-Bailey and really humanize who she was and the loss of her, and also how we are making steps to really seek justice for her. So today, we are so privileged that we have Dr. Candia-Bailey's AKA sorority line sister and friend, and also mental health advocate, Miss Crystal Jackson. So I'm going to turn it over for Miss Jackson to introduce herself. And we're going to really go a deep dive and really learning more about Dr. Candia-Bailey. I do have to say, and just to alert everyone, that we are going to be talking about suicidal behavior. So just so you are aware of that. Also, if you or someone else experiences thoughts of suicide, please go to your nearest emergency room. You can call 911 and let them know it's a mental health emergency. Also, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay, that's available to you by calling or texting 988. So if you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. And I talk about various issues that impact us as Black women, including workplace bullying. So we're going to be talking a lot more about that today. So Ms. Jackson, I'm going to turn it over to you for you to introduce yourself, please.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Dr. Kamani, for having me on. Actually, today is Founders Day. So for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, 1908, January 15th, today is our Founders Day. So I know Bonnie is absolutely with us. And so it's an honor to be on to continue. I've said in other interviews that, you know, she's not here. I always have her words, what she wrote, her last words. She's not here to speak them, so I'll use my voice to speak for her. So it's definitely an honor. She was my line sister, my friend. She was bold, caring, strictly business. She was just light and love. So as long as I have breath in my body, I will continue to speak out. So I really appreciate you reaching out, because the more we talk about it, the more we keep it in the forefront, it doesn't die. And her legacy doesn't die. So I really appreciate you reaching out to me and us doing this today.
Yes. And I just want to tell the audience how I met Crystal. I went to a rally. It was the End the Workplace Workplace Abuse rally. And Crystal was one of the speakers. And I was just like, wow, like, you know, we all heard about Dr. Bonnie. We were all heartbroken about Dr. Bonnie, but we didn't know her. We didn't know her. And so it felt like someone in our family passed away, but then we felt like we didn't know her. And then we were following the story, and there were a lot of things we didn't know. And then it just became like this kind of gaping wound. So I think it's really important for us to be able to have this conversation so that we can better understand who Dr. Bonnie was, right? And the other thing is, when I saw you and I just saw you talking about her, I was like, oh my God, I got to reach out to her. And, you know, and you were open, and I said, you know, can we come on and talk about it? So can you tell us about Dr. Bonnie? Let us know who she was.
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, she was bold, and she was an educator. She loved students. When I met Bonnie on the campus of Lincoln University, Bonnie was a residential assistant. So it was no shock that she ended up being a vice president of student affairs. When I met Bonnie, she was on the campus of Lincoln University. She went back to that university as vice president of student affairs. Where it started for her, even in her letter, is where it ended for her. So for Bonnie was passionate about students, passionate about education, passionate about women, passionate about women's rights. Bonnie had a bachelor's degree in sociology. She got that from Lincoln in 1998. In 2001, she graduated from Michigan State, and she had a master's in rehabilitation, counseling, and disability studies. And then she graduated from North Carolina A&T with her PhD in leadership studies. So she came from a family of educators, a family of a legacy of individuals that was passionate about education, passionate about excellence. And Bonnie was passionate about people, in particular students, and definitely women. That was her passion. When Bonnie went back to Lincoln, for anyone that didn't know, it hadn't been 6 months. Bonnie went back in 2000 last year. So we're in 2025. So Bonnie went back in 2023. So in May of 2023 is when Bonnie went back and took on the vice president of student affairs role. From May to July is when she got her first evaluation. And it was during that time that she even mentioned in her letter that how poor her first employee feedback was from the leader at that university, and how she completed the corrective actions within a month. I think she said she got the evaluation on July the 18th. By the 23rd of August, she had completed her follow-up. Okay. But to actually sit down and talk about it, that didn't happen until November of 2023. Whoa. And like we know, she committed suicide on January the 8th of 2023.
Wow.
So in a 6 months time frame, I don't know how someone could go from being hired at the university. In her letter, she talked about things that she voiced, right? But she also talked about getting a 36 out of 100 within 3 months on an evaluation when asking for give me valid feedback, give me valid points. And she mentioned even sharing, some things from HR, how she didn't get solid things. And the things that she did, she tried to work on it. Or she talked about, you can look at follow up to where I've done X, Y, Z. So from November, what we do know from November outside of that meeting, and even in her letter when she talks about in that meeting, and how when she disclosed that she needed special accommodations for her severe anxiety and depression, she feels like that's when everything went all downhill and behaviors started to change. And in her letter, she explicitly called out the president of that university. And she even asked for help from the board of curators, who again turned a deaf ear on her because they said they didn't handle matters of what she was bringing up. But in Bonnie's true fashion, when she went to the mission and the responsibilities of the board of curators, it absolutely was their responsibility to listen to her and bridge the gap between what was going on, to look at it a little further. So in her opinion, that university failed her. She knew mentally she was going through some things, and the university failed her.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is, number one, she was coming back to her alma mater. So excited about that, right? So committed to the work. And then shortly thereafter, she got a very negative evaluation. And when she tried to get clarification and examples, they didn't provide that to her. Right. So she's trying to figure out what to do. She's trying to check all the boxes. She does that, but there's no real sit down follow up with her for months.
No.
Wow.
No. Yeah. And she's documented. There's a 13-page letter, and I keep it close by because I'll go through my notes because I don't want to misquote. Anytime I'm sharing information, I'm saying I'm speaking from what Bonnie left behind. She talked about leaving hard drives and, a telephone with information. And what we do know, and this is verbatim from, so when did this happen? On January 8th, the president went on a paid leave as an investigation was occurring. That investigation was the board of curators engaged an independent third-party expert to do the investigation. Bonnie had called out the board of curators in her letter. The board of curators she called them out several times. So for them to engage an independent third party, it was truly not independent. So when we talk about in workplace abuse, when we talk about the Workplace Psychological Safety Act, we're talking about we're still asking for a third party, someone that's not affiliated with the university at all, to look at the data that Bonnie left behind, to look at the hard disk and drive that she left behind, to do a true independent investigation. And that's why that safety act, the Workplace Psychological Safety Act, is so important, because if this is passed in various states, what will happen is when someone like Bonnie files a claim, or someone like Bonnie is asking for help, it'll trigger a third party to come in and take over to handle that investigation, so that we can prevent cover-ups and we can prevent conflicts of interest, which clearly, if we just look at the facts and data and then letters that's been passed back between the university and the Alumni Association, you can form your own opinion by it, but we're reading the words that was written in reports saying that the Board of Curators engaged this third party. And then you can look at Bonnie's letter saying the Board of Curators failed me, however.
Wow. So how long had this back and forth, let's say with the Board of Curators, been going on with Bonnie? How long was that going on?
Not long. So in her letter, when she sent an email, this was, did I have a date in here? November 6th. So November 16th is when they responded. Bonnie had reached out to the Board of Curators, and on November 16th is when they responded saying that she reached out on November the 15th. November the 16th is when they responded saying they was in receipt of her email, but please be advised the Board of Curators does not engage in the management of personnel issues for Lincoln University and will not be taking further actions related to this. And this came from Victor Paisley, I think, who's the president of the curators.
So I'm just like, so what was she advised to do then? Right. So she tried to follow up with the university president. That wasn't helpful. She followed up with them, not helpful.
Even HR, she even reached out to HR. And I think in here, she mentioned HR, there was no responses to emails when she was asking for help. When she reached out to the Board of Curators, they said, we got your email, but we're doing nothing about it. Crystal paraphrasing, because I just read it. But then what Bonnie did was, she says, I was under the impression the board monitored and assured the overall management of the president. Forgive me for drawing this conclusion. I asked April if I had concerns with you, who I should contact. She failed to respond. April was HR. Bonnie pulled the mission, and she included in the email the mission and the function. The function of the Board of Curators of Lincoln University assures good management, sets policy, sets fees, grants degrees, selects and supports a president, and monitors presidential, institutional, and board performance.
And that did not happen. That clearly did not happen.
Clearly it didn't, because they said here, they're in receipt of it, and they don't engage in the management or personnel issues of Lincoln University.
Yeah. And from what I recall, and I don't know if this is the correct quote, but I saw something, I was like, oh my God. The quote said it was from Dr. Bonnie, and it said something like, if you're in a workplace environment where you're experiencing workplace bullying, don't try to fight it. Leave, or it's going to hurt you.
Her exact words. Okay. If your soul is empty, troubled, in despair, and you see red flags, leave. Don't try to stick around. Wow. This was on the last page of her 13-page letter. That's what I have highlighted. It says, if your soul is empty, troubled, in despair, and you see red flags, leave. Don't try to stick around. And what she said after that is, my soul can rest. I filled my earthly dash, March 1974 to January 2024. A seat has been prepared for me.
Wow. So it was basically look at me by example.
Yeah.
Right. That my soul has been broken.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
And just the thoughtfulness that she's saying this to other people in her own pain.
So what's sad about this is Bonnie, not only did she leave the letter, the way she orchestrated the day, that day, I'll never forget that day. But when I got the call, she was so thoughtful, even in ending her own life, on how the information was going to land in inboxes, who was going to get what. And something else she said was, karma is a beast and never expires. Karma will catch up to you and a few others. It may not happen tomorrow, however, in time. Karma and ill intentions are like a mirror. It will reflect the pain and bruises you have caused on others. Dr. Mosley, may God have mercy on your callous and evil soul. You should never have bad intentions against a child of God. So even in that, she
Wow.
left things documented um, to a place where these conversations, right? We're still talking about it a year later. It made headline news because she told a story. Like, she gave you a story. She called out so much stuff. It's almost like she was writing a dissertation.
Wow.
And she was so careful and so strategic in how she did it and what she said, and no emotions. Like, it was facts and data. She's provided facts and data and pointed to different places, people that she called out. She's going to leave you the follow-up facts and data surrounding why she's saying what she said. So
Mm,
even if a true third party came in to investigate, there's so much data here that will probably take you down places to say, no, something is here,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
from what she left behind. But she was
Yeah.
thoughtful in how she did it, that she's not making people go dig for it. She's
Yeah.
just saying, well, somebody look at what I left and make sure
Wow.
this doesn't happen to someone else.
Wow. It's almost like she has like a bird's eye view about her life and she's
Mhm.
documenting it.
Yeah.
Ah, wow. That is absolutely amazing and so
Yeah.
heartbreaking that that was her experience. And
Yeah.
Crystal, and not to be insensitive at all. And I just want to just say to, I'm also have lost someone to suicide, so just to have compassion for that and suicide survivors. So, can you said that that day everything was so thought out, right?
She
And
took a message on Facebook that morning. Actually, I just took a picture of it because it was so many people commenting. But this day, the night before she did it, and when I was scrolling through on the anniversary of her death, I said, I have to go back and remember
mm,
what Bonnie wrote on this particular post.
mhm.
Um, and she wrote, this was on January the 8th. So we woke up to see this on the post. So it had to be late in the middle of the night, or I don't know how early, but she committed suicide. The post she made: I'm so thankful for so many of you. You've been my source of encouragement and strength. It's too many to tag. Special shout to my mom, AB, Don, my soror sister group, mentors, and my Lincoln University alumni family. Forever grateful. Love you all. But she did this all the time. That's why it was a shocker. This was the day, January 8th, 2024. She was thinking about other people to just say how grateful she was. This is who Bonnie was. To say how
Wow.
grateful she was, and knowing that that day would be that would be it for her.
Yeah.
But she's still giving people their flowers. That's just
Yeah.
who she was. That's just who she was. And just to know that she was suffering and we didn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because she wanted to protect Anthony. In his interview, I think if you watched, he was
Your
talking about she
husband.
was eating ice cream, or they were talking while she was eating ice cream the day before. So for
Mhm.
her to carry that and still be thinking about other people, it's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you made reference to her husband, which
Yeah.
was really eye-opening to hear him and his perspective. So as you're talking about this, and again, it's very difficult because this is new information for us, right? So as you're talking about this and you talk about your experiences, one of the things I heard you say was we didn't know, like we didn't know that she was thinking about this. And I think what many people are fearful of talking about suicide because there's this misconception that if we talk about it, then we're just going to put it out there or it's going to make somebody do something. That's not true, right? And so sometimes people think, well, what were the signs? Like, what were the signs? So, were there signs that now that you reflect back on it, you're like, oh, maybe that was a sign? Were there certain things?
The only thing looking back is just in various posts. Like, if we look at posts leading up to that last one, maybe just ways in which she was saying things that if you read between the lines, you could see it. I didn't go back a lot to homecoming. And I even mentioned this in another interview. I have a sister. My sister is not Bonnie's sorority sister, but my sister spent a lot more time with Bonnie than I did. And even I want to say the last because homecoming was big. Everybody looked forward to seeing Bonnie at homecoming. Going back to Lincoln, homecoming, HBCU is something that is a big deal. And I remember a couple of people commenting on maybe she was just her energy was just a little different, but she had just taken on the role. And so Bonnie showing up when she wasn't the vice president of student affairs versus now, she has a role at the university. She's on staff at the university, coming and just hang out with friends could be different. But was that the truth? Because homecoming happens in October, right? So she was going through this already. So the heaviness and her, the energy being off could have been definitely related to this as well, outside of, yes, I can come and participate, but I'm on staff. It could have been, and we just read it wrong, or somebody read it wrong.
Yeah, right. Because she's in a new role. So of course you think, oh, it's because of that. Yeah. So it sounds like she was really suffering in silence in many ways.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sure even with me being her line sister, Bonnie had other friends that she was absolutely closer to. So even some of those friends from college that and are sorors, and some are not, that she was really close to, she may have shared with someone else outside of me. I'm not sure. But based on feedback that we've gotten, I haven't ran across a person that said, I knew, or she said it, or other than your normal loads that you go through when life gets heavy, nothing of the nature of, I saw this coming. I think in Anthony's interview, he even shared that he didn't see it coming, and that's her husband.
Yeah. And it's interesting, during the rally, there was a clip of Dr. Bonnie, and I never see her, I'm saying, interacting with her sisters and all that kind of stuff. So in that video, she was just very generous in that video as well. She was thanking them.
That's her. Bonnie would reach out by that, going through the post, right? And even when people would share on the anniversary of her death, people that Bonnie was just so loved. And so when people will repost, she had just sent me this, or this was my last message, it was always her reaching out, showing love, showing gratitude, or checking on someone else, or being kind and loving. That's just who she was.
Yeah. So in terms of, maybe the thoughts of suicide she didn't share with other people, did anyone else know about the degree to which she was experiencing these things at the university? Did anybody know?
I don't know if the degree. I do know based on in her letter, she called out various people that could go into her office and do certain things. So I'm not going to say I'm 100% sure, but I do think as far as what was going on, she did share that with other people there that may have been close friends that worked at the university, or she had trust circles that she shared with. I do know one person in particular that she shared the depth and the degree of what she was thinking based on it. I'm not sure, but just what was going on. And as far as the workplace abuse is what we can call it, I do know that she did share that, but I'm not sure as far as what came after that. Her sharing it and then saying, I don't know how much longer I can do this. Just her mental state around it.
So she was still participating in events and things like that, right? Okay. And what has happened since, like, following her passing? How did the university address it? How do they have communication with the family? What's happened?
So what has happened since? So her death was on January the 8th. There was a investigation. That investigation came back that there were no findings on April 21st by this third party that the curators engaged. In June, the university suspended the Alumni Association.
What suspended them in what way?
So the Alumni Association has been in existence. They have been incorporated for over 50 something years.
Okay.
They have been in existence. That university is old for 100 and something years. So they have used the Lincoln University Alumni Association name. They have used the branding for over 50 something years because they've been incorporated. In 2022, there was information going back and forth between the Alumni Association and the university for them to agree on a memorandum of understanding. Why? After 50 something years, no clue. What we do know is there's been a new president that, came into place. So we'll go with that. Now, mind you, this was in 2022. So this is 2 years later. So there have been requests for meetings. They hadn't met, right? The Alumni Association, I know, has sent back a draft of what that was, like the updates to what was proposed by the university, and had opened up discussion for let's meet. Fast forward 2 years later, now all of a sudden, based on, I guess, no agreement being met, mind you, I said that meeting there was a draft in play and requests for meetings, suspension. And they cited various reasons. The university wanted audits of the Alumni Association's financials. It's a nonprofit organization. They file the way they're supposed to file. It's been in existence. They wanted closure to the memorandum of understanding. They listed various things, but it's just odd to me.
I've never heard anything like that before.
Odd to me because we did a rally. So what happened in February, the students, they were calling out Mosley had to go. They were calling out the workplace bullying. The Alumni Association came in. We did a visual for her. We rallied at the state capitol in Missouri. We went to the floor. The students rallied up until his return. So then in June, they suspended the Alumni Association. And then not now going from the suspension because I guess when the requests were not met to see the audits of the financials, the MOU hadn't been finalized, they actually terminated. And there's an ongoing lawsuit right now because in that termination, as far as continuing to use the name and the logos, I think that's a part of the litigation. So I don't have a lot into it.
Wow.
But what I said was based on some of the back and forth that I observed and in reading some of the behavior that Bonnie called out in her letter, I saw similarities in the behavior that was happening now with the Alumni Association based on what Bonnie put in her letter saying certain behaviors was happening with the leadership at that institution.
Wow. So can you clarify something too? Because again, this has been like bits and pieces, and I think it's helpful for people to know the truth, right?
Right.
So when I first heard about Dr. Bonnie, I would try to follow the stories, right? But it was like alleged, this, and people again trying to put these pieces together. Two things really stood out to me in addition to the workplace bullying. One was I read something that her dissertation was on, was it Black women in higher education leadership or something like that?
The name of her dissertation is My Sister, Myself, the Identification of Sociocultural Factors that Affect the Advancement of African American Women in Senior Level Administration Positions. And I'll read it again. My Sister, Myself. So Bonnie did extensive research on examining identity in African American women. In 2016, she presented her dissertation, My Sister, Myself, the Identification of Sociocultural Factors that Affect the Advancement of African American Women in Senior Level Administrative Positions.
That was eerie, right? When I read that was eerie because it was just like, it was her life, right?
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that I read, which I don't know is true, that a part of the sting of the negative evaluation was some type of threat of termination and loss of housing, and that it was a really big issue, that it wasn't only the negative evaluation, it was this threat of other negative things could happen to her.
She was terminated. So that's something we don't talk about. Before she was terminated days before. I need to go back and get the exact date.
Oh, I didn't
nobody
know
talks.
that.
They terminated her.
What?
She was terminated days before she committed suicide. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
I have to find that letter because I have so much documentation. So I will find that and I'll share that with you. But they terminated her.
Oh my God. See, I didn't know that, right?
Yeah.
So the news that I got was something totally different.
No, she was terminated days
Oh,
before. And I think I had the day a week before or something, I want to say they had terminated her.
wow.
Or
Oh
some weeks. And
my
I'll get the exact date, but yes.
God. Okay.
Hmm.
So that adds to the despondency
Right.
about what was happening, right?
Right.
Okay. And so she laid out all these things. Was there a specific ask that she had of survivors in relation to all that she left behind?
Yes, and it's what she left in the end when she talked about literally, if you see red flags, do not stick around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she talked about student affairs being her love. She talked about mental health and how mental health is real. She said, lastly, mental health is real. She said, I told the investigator I believe the information shared with me. And so I think as this was going on, there must have been, as they're doing reviews leading up to all of the complaints or whatever. She said, I told the investigator I believe the information shared with me until my dying day. I sincerely shared with you about my illness. I was saddened to learn you shared and joked about my condition. While the investigation is closed, this situation has not been completed.
Wow.
My ADA request and mental health status were real issues. You suppressed the disability with my inability to supervise and provide leadership. I learned a valuable lesson while in this position. Receipts are necessary. I
Mm.
didn't even include all the nuggets. She is so funny because I can hear her saying this. I didn't include all the nuggets. However, all material is on an external hard drive and in my phone. I
Wow.
won't be around. However, I have faith that this once great institution can be great again.
Mm. Okay. And you talked about that they made fun of her or something like
She
that?
said this. She said that. So I don't know if there was some discussions when she shared about her mental illness and the support. It sounds like rumors got back to her that someone found out about it. So if she shared it in
Wow.
closed courts, it got back to her some kind of way. And based on what she's saying here, seems as if, because these are Bonnie's words,
Mhm.
you joked about my condition. I was saddened to learn you shared and joked about my condition. And she's saying it to him because she wrote the letter is directed to Dr. Mosley.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
this letter is to him. I'm reading stuff that she wrote. This is a 13-page letter that she sent to him and sent out to everybody else. This is directed to Dr. Mosley,
Oh my
the
goodness.
president of the university.
Wow.
Everything I'm reading out of here is directed to him.
And that's one letter that was sent on January 8th.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. So she just chronicled everything.
Everything.
And then how did the university respond in relation to her family and to her friends and to the school community, from what you know?
Not much. Vague. I think even on the death of her anniversary, they sent out, hearts. I mean, they sent out a statement that, their thoughts and prayers is with the family. They did acknowledge it. And then they brought up something about mental health as well. During that year time frame, from what I know and from what I've heard, I don't know if there was much interaction. I know at some point when the investigation came back, I think the board of curators president reached out maybe to Anthony, but I don't know what was shared or what was said. So not much of anything that I'm aware of.
Wow.
Yeah.
The irony is that she was over student affairs, and students I know were deeply impacted by that.
Oh, deeply,
Yeah,
deeply,
yeah, yeah.
deeply.
And from my understanding, after the so-called investigation, the president came back,
Absolutely. He's
right?
there to this day. He came back and things went on as normal.
Wow. Okay. So can you share a bit? Everyone, I have the End Workplace Abuse petition going
Yes.
across the screen. Okay. It'll also
Yes.
be in the description section. So for you to sign the petition. So can you
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit in terms of course, it's heartbreaking what happened to Dr. Bonnie. And it also sounds like you and friends and family are really honoring her
Mm-hmm.
by speaking up,
Mm-hmm.
continuing to speak up, not being silent about it, and moving forward so that other people don't have similar experiences. Can you share about the petition and any other work you're doing to really elevate the issue of workplace bullying?
Absolutely. So just similar to you as well, the organization reached out to us that we're working. And I always say that even though we don't have to be loud, right? We don't have to say a lot of different things. And sometimes silence is key. But I always say anytime I get a chance, I don't want anybody to ever think this is going to go away, because it's not going to go away. It's just not going to go away. As long as I have air, and as long as I'm breathing and I have a mouth to still fight and speak on her behalf. So this organization reached out, and on January the 1st, that's where you met me in the virtual rally, where we are still speaking. We're still talking about what happened to Bonnie, but not only Bonnie, because there's more Bonnies. There's someone out there right now that may be contemplating suicide because they're going through the same thing. So many different women have reached out since then and continue to reach out. So when this organization reached out, there's a group of us that's working together. And for the first time, that's when Anthony said that he would speak. But they're working a policy. And that's the thing. It's a lot to speak. It's a lot to talk, to keep her legacy alive. But unless policy change, unless we do something to change the way corporations and organizations are treating their employees when it comes to abuse, we can get on here and talk all day. Right. So this petition is for a policy. It's called the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. And what this is, and even when you go to End Workplace Abuse, sign the petition, there's information. They even have the bill on there and the wording for the bill. But when I shared how Lincoln University, the Board of Curators, engaged a third-party investigation company, they were still, that's like what do they call it? The fox watching the hen house. They were still a part of the problem that she mentioned. What this bill will actually do is trigger a true third party if it gets passed in various states. And this made it past the Senate, I think, in some states. But if it's passed, if we just get it passed in one state, then we're praying that it's a ripple to where we truly can make it about the workers, about the employees. When a complaint is taken forward, when someone goes to HR or someone feels like something is happening that's impacting them and they feel like it's abuse, that it triggers a true third party that's not affiliated with that institution to kick off an investigation and make sure it's independent, make sure, all facts and data is reviewed by all parties to make a fair assessment and to protect the employees and to protect the workers. So that's why we need the petition signed. Support. There's over 60,000 members. There's chapters. I think they're trying to get chapters in each state. So it's a big deal. And even outside of that, some of us that's working in the background, the continued coverage at the highest levels, if we can get more coverage on this, get more support. There's some ideas that we're working even as far as various individuals in high levels of government, that if we can connect with them. So we're just working to try to figure it out. But right now, what we know people can do is sign the petition and get behind what it is that we're trying to get passed. That would help. If we can get it passed in one state, the prayer is that it'll be a ripple and that we can get it passed in many more states through the End Workplace Abuse organization.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so everybody signed the petition. And in addition to signing the petition, what are some other things that maybe we can do?
I think joining, like even when, if you want to be a part of the solution and not the problem, there's ways in which you can join in workplace abuse organizations locally there. There's ways in which even your thoughts, ways in which we may go about. They had a rally on the 8th, the anniversary of Bonnie's death. I don't think that'll be the last rally. They're planning to do more. So there's a lot of planning, a lot of ideas that they're working with this. So getting attached and connected, and the more support we have behind it in various states, hopefully that they'll be able to get the visibility that's needed, because this organization has already started putting something in place for policy. And that's the number one thing. We need policy change. So getting on board to help support and get this pushed forward is where I would say we would really want people to help.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Policy is essential because we can talk and say things, raise awareness, which is good. Right. But if there's no policy to back it up, they will continue to do this stuff. So what if there's a Black woman watching now and she is experiencing workplace bullying, what would you say to her?
If she's experienced, definitely reach out to someone you trust, a family member. If you had like to discuss it, because what we don't want to happen is you suffer in silence or that person suffer in silence. So as hard as it may be to have the discussion with somebody around that, I would first seek someone in my inner circle that I trusted to have the conversation with. But I am, when I say mental health advocate, I've shared before, my mom has suffered from bipolar for 43 years of my life. And so I understand what it is to advocate, because when she's, and my mom lived a thriving life. She has 2 degrees, the whole 9, but she suffered from bipolar. But knowing and being able to recognize the signs, being able to help advocate for her and with her is something. So finding someone that you can start, if this is something that you battle with, and if it's starting to impact your mental health, to really find someone that you can feel like you can be vulnerable with, that you can say, hey, I need help. Will you kind of keep this to ourselves right now, but seek professional help?
Yes.
That's the other thing, outside of finding someone that in your inner circle, family or friend, definitely seek professional help. I'm an advocate for therapy. I have a therapist that I absolutely love, but a professional will be able to help guide in the right direction. And I would say do it sooner than later, because the more time passes, then you're in that vulnerable state.
Yes.
You may want to harm yourself.
Yes, you get in that hopeless spiral. So,
Yes.
Crystal, we talked before we started today about your faith, right? And so
Yes.
we talk a little bit for Black people. Sometimes there's a perception that if we pray long enough, if we do certain things spiritually, that will take away any type of mental pain or anguish or illness that we have. So can you distinguish between faith is important, right? But also therapy is important too.
Right. I'll say this, and I shared this with my cousin yesterday. I mentioned us on the 75 Days in Faith. I think we have to change our mindset. If you stump your toe and break your toe, what are you going to do? If there's damage, if you strain a muscle, if you chip your tooth or you need dental work, you're going to go to a podiatrist, you're going to go to a dentist to repair it. Our mental health is no different, right? Because think about it. Those are still our mental, our brain still is a part of who we are. So if we will go to a podiatrist when we stumped our toe and broke our toe or chipped our tooth and go to a dentist, why didn't we just pray for God? Will you let it grow back? God, will you just heal? I'm going to sit with this pain. Will you just heal my toe? Right. It's no different when it comes to therapy. For me, I've been on this journey these last 3 years. I'll tell people, even on my platform and in my life, I'm used to building and thriving. I shared with my mom, being bipolar, I was a teen mom. Build and thrive. Well, I can build and thrive, and I'm off and going. But really sitting to take the time to deal with some of the traumas. Think about it. My small little 7-year-old body, I mentioned being an advocate for my mom now and the way I deal with it now. But imagine a little 7-year-old and the trauma that was trapped in my body, dealing with that as a small child and then becoming a teen mom, right? It's so many different things that until I got older, I'm not going to say I didn't take it serious, but I really got serious about it. My healing became in front of my building and thriving for my own mental health, my own mental wellness, because I could see what it would do. Also, my faith, right? I believe, I'm a Christian, that we are the body of Christ, right? I believe he gives us all gifts. I'm an engineer by trade, so we build things. Doctors, there's various doctors, right? We are the body of Christ. So even in my faith, God has given us gifts. And with that gifts, he's given us knowledge to be able to help someone. He talks about don't be stressed. He talks about anxiety in the body. He knew all of these things that if we didn't release it would harm our body, would do something to our body. But he also gave us people, because he put gifts in people to really go and help us through it. Church is a part of absolutely, that's my foundation, but also knowing that people are gifted with gifts to be able to sit down and have a conversation about the real things that are going on in life that maybe the Bible didn't talk about years ago. It was written in a different day. We're living in a different day and age. So to be able to have a professional In my profession, my therapist, thank God, I chose a therapist where I can switch back and forth. If I want to go in and say, oh, we talking faith today. Let me just tell you how God worked this miracle out and how even going through this, I'm at peace. And we may talk all faith-based, or no, okay, Crystal showing up, and this is 16-year-old Crystal today. I need for you to give it to me unfiltered.
Yeah.
Tell me how it is. So I was conscious about who I picked, and I went through 3 or 4 therapists before I found my person that I've been committed to over the last couple of years. So I, right now, can't have one without the other, now that I see how it's changed me and changed my life.
Yeah, I really appreciate you said that it took 2-3 times before you find your therapist, because sometimes people feel like, oh, therapy didn't work for me. I went and they didn't get it or whatever. But I love what you said. If you don't find that one therapist and you don't click, you keep going.
Keep going.
Right? Don't
have
settle and don't say therapy doesn't work. And I also heard you say therapy and faith go together.
It goes together.
It's not one or the other. No. Right.
And I think in our culture, we weren't taught that, right? And so my daughter has this saying, as far as you can see. If you weren't exposed to it, it's something that you do think, I'm just going to pray about it. But then you have to step back and be like, well, why don't you just pray about all that other stuff then, where you're going to seek professional help, or you're going for a diagnosis, or you're going for your yearly checkup, or you're going to the OBGYN, or you're going to get your mammogram. Just pray and have faith that it's not going to happen, right? So it doesn't line up. So we have to change the stigma around therapy, because just like God gave us OBGYNs and specialists to show us when harm is coming our way, or even when it reveals itself, how to get through it. That is exactly why we have therapists as well, for our mental well-being. And I was sharing with my cousin the other day, I said, we have to take care of our mental health, meaning we have to use the tools for our mental health so that it doesn't become an illness. Absolutely. And when you take care of it, just like what you put in your body and what you eat, and us being healthy, it's no different for how you take care of your mind. If you don't take care of it, if you don't work through some of the things that have you bound and the traumas, it will become an illness. If you don't learn how to control it and it controls you, it absolutely will become an illness. So that's why those professionals, and as you can see, I'm passionate about this.
I love it.
That's why it's so important. That's why it's so important.
Yeah. And just that mental health is on a continuum. Right? So we always need to be thinking about our mental wellness. So what are the things that we're doing ongoing to kind of keep us settled? Absolutely. And then we need additional support. How do we get that additional support? Now, there's another stigma in our community about suicide. So I would say maybe before the pandemic, talking about mental health in the Black community, talking about suicide, what? No, that's not something we do, whatever, right? Since the pandemic, there's been a lot more focus and acceptance in the Black community about therapy. But suicide, there's still a stigma about that. Can you speak to the stigma about suicide and why it's so important for us as a Black community in particular to talk about suicide and suicide prevention?
It's important because, and I, even when it happened, when I got that call that day and I went to Bonnie's funeral on the 8th, and I went to her funeral, when I came back, it was the first time that I probably had spoke on my platform, because when I said I was serious about my healing process, I really stopped, because I have masterminds, I'll coach, I'll speak. I stopped because I really was focusing on me, right? But it was also something that I realized being back at Lincoln, being back around a lot of my sorority sisters, but not only that, just being in a space where hearts were broken. We were hurting because we didn't understand it. And all of 2024, unity and community were the words, unity and community. We have gotten so far away from being connected, so far away from unifying. Social media took over. Then we were in the pandemic. Isolation will kill you. It will and if you don't get control of your mind, the suicide rate, what we're seeing is we're isolated. There's no connection. People are suffering in silence. And until and it all goes hand in hand with getting the professional help that we need and acknowledging what is going on in our society, we isolate. We don't connect. Now people are not even going back to work. We were created to connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what your belief is.
Mm-hmm.
We were created to be around people, and
Mm-hmm.
our society is going so far away from that. It's
Mm-hmm.
no shock that suicide rates are up because people are not connecting for the exchange of that positive energy. People are not connecting for the support, the embracement, the community that they need.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't even have family. Some, you feel alone, and you're like, why do I even want to be here anymore? We
Yeah.
need people to survive. And
Yeah.
so we have to get back to that. And I think we have to start having more conversations. And just like I shared with you, what I'm doing, going back to my hometown, is for that very reason.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to get back to community. We've got to get back to unity. And that's when we start to thrive. And that's when we'll start seeing a decline in our mental health illness rates
Mm-hmm.
and in our suicide rates. But if we continue this divide and isolation, it's only going to get worse.
Exactly. And if we avoid talking about
Yeah.
this issue, it doesn't make it go away. It makes it
No.
go worse. And
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of research on Black youth suicide, and those
Yeah.
rates are going sky high, and nobody talks about it.
No.
So we have to talk about it because so many people are at risk. So
Yeah.
the importance of recognizing the risk factors, the warning signs, and what to do,
Yeah.
right?
And
So
not only talk about it, we have to do something about it.
true,
We can talk
true.
about it, but we've got to do something about it, where we have to get back in the community. We have to get back to being a part of the solution. What are we doing? I talk all the time about, if you look at the time you spend in a day, how much time are you wasting? And how much of that time could have been attached to an organization that's out in the community doing something to connect, to start something for these children? If we know that it's on the rise and there's a problem, yes, we raise awareness around it, but then what is the solution to the
What are we
problem
doing?
that we're
Yes.
going to do?
Yes. And avoidance is not the answer.
No, it's
Okay.
not.
Saying pray it away is not the answer.
No, it's not.
So, what you're talking about is healing in community, which is, I think that's the way that's how we were, right? Before
Yes.
we came to this country, and still retained a lot of that.
Yes.
So what would you say to, let's say, a Black woman who has a really good friend, and it seems like she's suffering in silence, right? But she's the strong friend. She's a strong friend, right? And she masks that everything's okay, but you get the sense that she's not really okay. What would you advise Black women to do in that situation?
I would advise that person to get uncomfortable, being uncomfortable, and pick up the phone.
Mm,
And we don't see people anymore. So if
mhm,
we see that, then we have to communicate. And if that's someone you love,
mhm.
then a simple, you got call, not a text.
Yeah.
Hey, I noticed your energy is a little off. I want to let you know that I'm here for you.
Mhm,
Do you want to talk about it? You want to share? And this is a safe place. That's the other
mhm,
thing. People
mhm.
don't feel like they have safe places and safe spaces. So that for that friend, when you make that call, it has to be sincere. And when you find
Yeah.
out that information, you can't go and then share it, because the minute it comes out, you lose that trust. You
True.
lose the vulnerability that that person had,
Mhm.
and you may set them back. So it
Yeah.
has to be genuine, it has to be intentional, and it has to be on purpose, because you could be saving a life. So
Yeah.
reaching out, not in a text, hey girl, how are you doing? Picking up the phone to call and say, hey, just calling to say I love you. I see your
Mm.
energy is off a little bit. Is there anything I can do for you? Girl, let's go to lunch this week. What are you doing? Let's go to dinner. I'm not going to take no for an answer. If you don't want to go out, I'm going to cook something. Come over. Let's have girls' day. I've
Mm.
had girls' day with my girls, and we were literally on the couch. One Friday, it was 5:00, and my friend came over. She had all the food. We put our PJs on at 5:00, and it was nothing that was going on. It was
Uh-huh.
just girlfriend time, and we put movies on. It was the next day. We got up the next day and worked out. So being intentional about friendships, being intentional about put the phones down.
Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
have a girlfriend moment. Get you a glass of wine, or if you don't drink, cook something up, and have those vulnerable moments where you allow your friends to release and you don't share it. So you
Mhm.
start building trust and safe spaces for the
Mhm.
unity and community that I'm talking about. And then it
Yeah.
starts growing.
Yeah.
It starts
Yeah.
growing, and we go back to the basics. Honestly, we go
Yeah.
back to the basics.
Yeah. And as we're winding down, I just commend you for all the work that you're doing, and really how emotional it must be to see her
Mhm.
work, see Dr. Bonnie's words, and see and feel the pain that she was in, and yet you still move forward because you know that justice needs to be had, right? So you know
Absolutely.
that there's more work that needs to
Absolutely.
happen. So can you share with us what has been your healing journey? Because you're still in the midst of it.
My truth, my healing journey is the fight.
Mm,
Because when you read the words, and I have my moments, I have rocks. I pull rocks. I didn't pull one in at her funeral. Like I have I have her portrait in there. I have her obituary. I have rocks because this was the thing. So anytime I'm doing something, I'm like, okay, Bonnie, what are we doing today? I have my moments where if I need to shed a tear, I will. But I'm about what are we going to do? And
okay.
so my healing has been in when I'm with other friends and sorority sisters in the background and we're together and we're
Mhm.
fighting, we're saying even if we're crawling some days,
Mm,
we have to keep moving forward. We've taken a pause. I've taken a pause. I've pulled back when I've needed to for my own mental health,
mhm.
but then the momentum picks up and it's like, okay, it's time to go. What do we, you'll call or in workplace abuse call. And I've gotten other calls and it's like, okay, Bonnie, what are we doing? Let's go.
Okay.
What are we
You
doing?
still feel
So
the
I take
connection.
moments when I need moments. I
Mhm.
told you I'm in therapy. I've been in therapy, so I have my places to go to talk about it. I have my moments that I will take, but when I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone, and right now I'm in the zone because justice has to be served. It has to
Yes,
be.
yes.
And an independent, like an independent investigation. We're just asking for somebody outside of who did the first investigation to come in and do another one. And if findings come back that there are problems at that university, that change needs to happen because the
Yeah,
same leadership is still there.
yeah. Oh God. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's horrible. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about the rocks? What do the rocks symbolize?
So at her funeral, everybody pulled a rock, and it's Bonnie. So this one says faith, this one says laugh, and
Hmm.
so this one says thank you. So in different times when we may be working, doing something, this one says remember.
Hmm.
Doing something, I'll pull a rock. So the rocks that I've pulled has been in times where it may have been an interview, it may have been a rally, it may have been something where we really, needed an answer. I may say a prayer, light
Mhm.
my intention candle that I have, and I'll pull the rock, and then I'll smile because one day when I pulled remember, I think it really was remember this fight is not over. I don't remember what it was, but it was so on time. And I've only ever pulled the same rock once or twice. Every time it's something different.
Hmm.
So over the course of a year, I've probably pulled there's 7, 8, 9. I probably pulled like 10 or 11 rocks for something that I was doing because that was a symbol at her funeral that we pulled. And so every time I'm doing something on her behalf now, I will pull a rock for that day.
So for me, as a therapist and just as a person, I just think about ways that we keep people's memories alive, right?
Mhm.
So can you just tell us what was the symbolism of the rocks at her funeral? Was that something that Bonnie did? Is that
Yes, and
something?
even what was on it, even what was on the rocks, even how what the words that were on the rocks would be, Bonnie. It would be something faith driven or a thank you or a girl, keep your head up. It would be words that symbolize who Bonnie was and the
Wow.
love that she would give or the inspiration or encouragement that she would give to others. So even in
Wow.
her death, when you're pulling these rocks, even if we're fighting on her behalf, it's something that will symbolize who Bonnie is.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
rocks are like forever, right? So
yeah,
it's like she lives on. She lives
yeah.
on.
She lives on. She
Yes,
lives
yes,
on.
yes. Yes. So,
Yep.
Christo, as we're winding down, can you please share with the audience again about the petition as well as your work and what you're doing and how you can be contacted?
Okay. So again, the petition is in workplace abuse. You can find out all details for any rallies for whatever state you're in. There's over 60,000 plus members. There's a chapter in almost every single state. So if you want to get involved, join the chapter, help continue the work. Even they're looking for leads in some states, but the petition is something that we definitely want people to sign. The petition will help as we're trying to push policy forward, get it approved. If we can get it approved in one state, we're just hoping that it'll be a ripple effect. So endworkplaceabuse.com, visit the website. You can read the wordings that's in the bill that we're trying to get passed. You can learn more about in workplace abuse in general. There's more testimonies on there from different people. And then as far as me, you can follow me for any updates, but my social media is Crystal_L_Jackson, how you can get in contact and follow any stories related to Bonnie. For me and my work and my platform, I am a professional development speaker and coach. So I have a platform for personal development for individuals, and I also have a consulting company where I help businesses, small to mid-sized businesses as well, be the best version of themselves.
Okay. And how they contact with you for your business part too?
For my business part. So
yeah.
For my business part, so my email is crystal@CLJacksonGroup. So Crystal, C-R-Y, my name, CRYSTAL at C as in Charlie, L as in Larry, JacksonGroup.com. That is my email. And then my website is CrystalLJackson.com for any personal development and coaching. And for business related issues, it's the CL Jackson Group. So they can just type in CL Jackson Group though, CLJacksonGroup.com.
Okay. I'm just
for business, and then just CLJackson.com for all of my professional and personal development type.
Okay. Things. So I'm going to put this up here, and then is this right, Crystal? Did I get it right?
It is just CLJackson.com, and then just CLJacksonGroup.com.
CLJackson.com. What's the other one?
And the other one is just CLJacksonGroup.com.
Group.com. Okay, so I'm going to put her information on the screen. I'll also have it in the description section. Okay, so check out Crystal. And again, I want to just say to you, Crystal, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and to share so much about Bonnie. And I just feel like we know so much more about her and just how her legacy continues when you told us about the stories about the rock and, but also how she just memorialized everything.
Yes.
So that the next steps can be taken. So I appreciate your work and condolences, as I said to you before, to you and to her family and friends and to everyone as you're watching this. Please, again, sign the petition. Again, it's going across the screen. It'll be in the description section. And again, if you're having thoughts of suicide, please remember, take that seriously. You need to get immediate help. So go to the nearest emergency room, call 911 and let them know it's a mental health emergency. Also, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by calling or texting 988. Okay, everyone. So take care. And I will see you later.
And thank you for your work, and thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.